back and forth.
Okay.
Just kind of put it back over there. Yo, check, check, check. What's up? We are live. Mara, can you do me a favor and tap on that screen so we know how long we're taking? But we are live. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys are live with us, just make sure you comment. Make sure you comment a peace sign. Just don't put any middle fingers in the chat because I will ban you. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for, you see the whole crew in the back. It's Taco Tuesday. What is it? Two. So you have to at least eat two tacos. So I have the privilege today of going live with two of the greatest. I consider my OGs because they've taught me a lot just by watching them. So we got Pastor Jason and Mr. Mark. Do you want me to call you Pastor? I call you Pastor. so, so we are here. We are live. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason.
And Mario.
So we were just kind of hanging around. We were enjoying the broadcast that was live on my mom's page while they were talking about just about relationships, about everything. It was kind of cool. I learned some stuff. Apparently, I can't say white lady in the chat, so it's all good. But so it's kind of cool. So we're just here now. We're going to be talking about some stuff. So the name of the broadcast is definitely not clickbait because we are going to be talking a little bit about beards, Bibles, and baby mamas.
Yeah.
Now, for me personally, it's a question mark. I don't know if I have baby mamas. My mom's over there like staring at. My mom's real quiet. So we're just kind of talking about a little bit of here, a little bit of that. So welcome, guys. Welcome. I know this is Pastor Jason's first time on any kind of a broadcast. Mario, you are a returning.
Yes,
A returning guest.
I'm sharing this to my groups as we speak.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
I got my head down for the first couple
So
minutes.
if you are live with us, make sure you share, make sure you comment, and just let us know. Ask questions. Let's see, I'm gonna open up my phone here real quick. But if you got any questions, throw them in the chat. We're just here, just kind of talking about just a little bit of everything, honestly.
Mario got his head down and show off his waves.
That's really what it is, because I'm spinning, but I got a few forks in there I'm trying to work on. So
I'm back in
y'all
the Ripple
forgive me.
stage. I came out of retirement, so I'll be back in a minute.
You shaved all yours off.
By choice.
By choice?
By choice.
I was bald at one point in my life. When I first joined the Army, I shaved it all off. I was a handsome little thing, too. I'm trying to tell you, boy. I was 165 pounds of twisted sex appeal. If my left one didn't knock you out, my right one will. I'm trying to tell you, boy.
Yeah, I shave mine bald every so often.
See, if I shave mine bald now, the waves actually leave waves in my skin.
Yes, that is
so
true.
my skin will be waved up.
That is true.
Yeah.
I can never understand the concept of waves. I'm just like, there's so much because every once in a while, like on
It's an
TikTok
ethnic
or
thing.
well, see, that's the thing. Like on TikTok, and I would get, but see, there's Puerto Ricans with waves too, and I'm just like, how, dude? How, Sway? Explain to me. And then when they comb it out and it's like super long, and I'm just like, how is all that hair? It's just a mystery to me. It's just definitely a mystery to me. Let's see who we got in the chat. Oh, my brother's in the chat. What's up, Gabriel? Good to see you, baby boy.
Gabe, what it do?
Let's see. I'm gonna open up Facebook here real quick. Facebook, where you at? But yeah, so we're just kind of hanging out, kind of chilling, just kind of talking about it. So I know we were talking about beards. I always get not talked about, but my brother likes to make this joke because I shave my head intentionally. He's like, man, it looks like you got in a fight and someone threw a right hook and knocked your hair upside down. Just like, I know, and I just tell them politely, I disown you as a brother, and I'll never speak to you again.
That's actually a handsome look, though. You see
the whole
a lot of guys bald up top and keep it
See,
nice and lined and straight
like,
up down here.
Do you remember Suicide Squad when it came out? And it had Will Smith and he was Deadshot. Man, I was waiting for that look to take off, and then it just kind of didn't. And I was like, I'm gonna show up to service like next Sunday with a red jacket and the black, and it says like the whole thing, like for
Will
Suicide
Smith ain't
Squad.
a trendsetter no more. So
Yeah, I know. Just
he old news.
he's just he is. My brother says waves are a state of mind.
Waves are a state of mind.
I don't know what that means. My brother doesn't got no waves. His hair is straighter than a broom. Like he doesn't understand waves. But so yeah, we're just talking about a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I guess like my beard. So let me ask you a question. Do you guys trust other barbers with your beard? Like me, I'll go for like me personally. I have to do my own beard. I can't trust anybody with my beard. Now, real quick, people assume because I'm bald, I don't need clippers and all that. I've never shaved this much in my life because like for me, if a little bit of hair grows, I look dirty. You know what I mean? There's a lot of upkeep in being bald. So I guess my question to you is like, do you trust any barber with like me? I have to do mine. Like I can't, at least that way, if it's like all jacked up, I can blame myself. But if somebody else, that means I paid for someone to jack up my face, and I just can't. I just can't.
So for me in life, there are three people I'm loyal to: God, my wife, and my barber.
Amen.
So my barber, like shout out to Jet here in El Paso. That's my barber here in El Paso. That's yeah, Jet like the plane. But that's the only person I let touch my hair, period. Hair, beard, whatever. I'll try and do it myself every once in a while, but that's the person. When I was stationed in Alaska, I actually would fly home to all the way to Pennsylvania to see my barber to get my hair cut. So I'm a
That's
loyalist.
dedication.
Yeah, I'm a loyalist to my barber. If I change my style, like when I had my waves going to the side, I would only go to the one barber. Nobody else could cut it. If I change styles, then the door's open for a new barber, but I'm sticking with the same one I have right now.
Interestingly enough, I've been through some changes in El Paso when it comes to barber life. I probably have been to every top barber in this city. And what ends up happening is, well, I tell you what happened to me. You know, I had some barbers that was married to soldiers that's done PCS. That's done happened 2 or 3 times. I done had some barbers that's done went up on prices and become astronomically expensive. That's done happened once. And I finally found another barber who was probably kind of like an intermittent barber when your barber ain't available, you know, and you need a haircut tomorrow. Now she's kind of, you know, my barber now, and you know, she get me dialed in. So that barber game, boy, that's tough stuff right there, man. And it's been hard out here in El Paso for a brother. But once you find one, you got to stick with them.
You got to stick with them.
Because you got to think about it, though, man. You got to trust your barber with your life. I was laying up in the chair one day, and she had that blade to the bottom of my neck right here. You know, and I looked at her, I said, you know, I'm trusting you with my life right now, right? Because a lot of barbers don't even put the blade down there, but she do. Now, you know, she messed around and tipped that thing the wrong way. It's a wrap.
Like
You can
purple.
hang it up.
What's the color purple?
Exactly. See that?
Okay, so talk about barbers. I'm gonna ask it anyway. At what age did you learn that the armrests aren't for your arms? Like you gotta tuck them things in.
You must tuck your arms in, especially if your barber is a male.
You don't want them rubbing up on your elbow.
I learned that. I wasn't young. I probably was in my mid-20s when I learned that. And I'm sitting there with my arms on the armrest. Like, hey, brother, what's going on here? You done got a little too familiar with my right arm, man. Go on somewhere and sit down.
So with your beard care, I know you have a pretty nice full beard. Do you like some of us get patchy? Do you experience patchiness? Do you?
So for me, my patchiness comes in. My beard actually doesn't connect. Right there around the mustache part. Right there, you can see it on this side.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't connect. I just leave it, and it just, you know, that's why I kind of keep it low. But for me, it used to grow in patchy, and it's funny because I used to work with this dude. His name was James. He's not on Facebook anymore, but he told me one time, he's like, yo, because in the Latino community, there's always not like there's like an herbalist lady who's always like, you know, like just roasting vegetables and blending them up and putting them in mason jars for no reason, like, you know. So in the Latino community, we have a lot of those. And so this dude, he comes in, he's like, hey, I noticed you're bald. I was like, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. And then so he's like, I got something for you. So like, I'll never forget it. Like maybe about a week later, he comes back. You know those big mason jars that like people drink moonshine out of? Those like 2 1-liter ones.
I generally drink lemonade or Kool-Aid.
And so it's funny because he brought it and it was pitch black. The whole thing was just black. And I'm like, it looked like oil. I was like, hey, that's a cool jar, I guess. Like, that's cool. What do you got a jar for? He's like, this is for you. I was like, what? He's like, it's for your hair. It's for your head. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, my grandma or whatever made this whole thing. It's like this concoction of like a whole bunch of stuff. It's supposed to like mineralize your scalp or something. And I'm just like, all right, I guess. And he's like, what you do is you take a shower and then you put it and then you leave it on your head and then it'll grow. And I'm like, man, I'm not gonna just sit in the shower. So I left it sitting for a while and I was like, you know what? I'll do it. Whatever. Like, why not? So oddly enough, I would put it and I guess I would wash it off, but it would all trickle down to my face and I would just sit there while it was washing. So my face started growing a lot more. It was like, but because I would wash it off too early, all that stuff went to my face, but it never touched this part.
Do you have any more left?
I don't know what was in it, to be honest with you. He was just like, it's got garlic.
It
It's
doesn't matter what was in it.
no,
Do
I
you
don't
have
have
any more left?
any. I don't have any of it left.
You need to go back to that person and hook up.
So it was funny because not to shed too much light on my mom, but she had it's funny because like it's like herbalists and naturalists always have like the secrets to stuff. And I remember when my mom was going through her cancer battle when she started growing her hair back, they got her a bottle. It was like black gel from Juarez. It was like $30 a bottle. The bottle was like that big.
$30 in Juarez.
It looked like honey. Like you would squeeze it and it was just like real thick. And she used it on her scalp and like her scalp just blew up. It was crazy.
Can you know where we can get some of that at?
My mom knows. We'll get
left
the
the room.
information. But she used it on her scalp and she's like, oh, and then so she did that and like changed up to vegan soap and it just like that's why her hair looks good now.
Traditionally, black folks use castor oil.
So do Puerto Ricans. Oddly enough, I despise the smell. I
You
can't.
gotta go to the salads down the road and get the one with the scent in it. The real nice.
Oh, see, like I never got that far. I'm like, why, like because like, and then just my beard. I never needed oils and stuff for my beard. It was always just like.
But shameless plug for the young lady that squares me and Jason away. We both use the same kind of beard oil.
Yeah,
He put me on, and I just ordered some a couple weeks ago.
I'm gonna have to get some beard oil because I got this weird like spiral thing that happens right here.
That's called cowlick.
And then so I just gotta because it'll go away like if I brush it, but I know like with oil it'll keep the shape. And then so for the longest time I used to keep my beard really short, like really short. And I'm like, I just kind of want to grow. I want to put some Viking beads or something. Like I don't know, just why not? Just embrace it for all my Celtic brothers. Just kind of embrace it. So it's funny because I recently found out I took my DNA test, and it turns out I'm 32% Native American.
I can see that.
And so but not just any Native American, it's like original Aztec from Mexico Native American. And I was like, what? And then so I started looking up, like, I'm like, I don't look like these fools. And then I looked it up and they're all like inventing basketball and stuff.
And my grandma full-blooded Choctaw.
What's that?
Choctaw.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We might be cousins. That's why we look
That's
so
why
much
everybody
like. They
says
do
we're
call
twins.
us a twin.
So Facebook says that we're twins. If I take a picture of myself, it'll ask if I want to tag Mario.
And vice versa. I get a notification when he posts a picture and it'll say, somebody posted a picture of you. Would you like to tag yourself in it? And I look and I'm like, that's not me. That's Jason.
So, with twins, there's usually one that is bigger and then the smaller one is smarter and cuter. I'm the smaller, cuter one.
He got the leftover part of the zygote. I got all the good. You can't see that. There you go. Look at that big, strong muscle right there. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the products.
Yes, products.
We do share. We do use the same product. It's called Muff Stuff. So shout out to her. Oh, we're not she's not sponsoring, so X that out. But if you want to sponsor, we got you. But it does have the peppermint oil, castor oil, and things like that.
It's got tea tree oil in it too.
Tea tree oil as well.
I was looking at the ingredients the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, why would I waste my time with anything else when this got everything in it you need? Exactly. All of the essential oils to make sure that you have a healthy, fuller, shinier, and luxurious beard.
Exactly.
Yeah, look at these luxurious beards.
So as far as length and bulk, do you go for the big beard?
I can't.
No,
it's hard. I mean, like I can't get my beard to grow past where it's at right now. You know what I'm saying? I can't get this to get thicker. I can't get this to. I mean, it's just. I mean, I don't know if my barber keep cutting it off while I'm sleeping in the chair, but that's all the length I can get.
Yeah, I want mine like Aaron's to touch the hem of my garment.
Oh, amen.
The top hem, I'm at the top hem. Does that count?
Yeah.
All right, so we there. We there. It's a hem at the top.
So I know I'm getting messages about the buzzing. It's just I've had this interface and these microphones for going on 13 years now. So it's just old equipment, you know. And that'll be a great segue into the Bible part, because I know it's funny because like how do we have the ladies have a podcast and they are broadcast and they didn't talk about nothing about products or fashion or hairstyle or nothing, and here we are talking about beard oils and shampoos and barbers and looking nice. So yeah, I've had this equipment for a minute, but I've been blessed beyond belief. To it's interesting now because and it'll be the great transition into the Bible part of the. We'll get to baby mamas in a second, but so the
I ain't
Bible
got
part
one
is.
that I know of.
We'll keep that. We'll keep that down. But you know, I've been blessed, and I've been absolutely fortunate to have a lot of these opportunities just now in the recent months and years. And my mom mentioned it in her episode in their broadcast earlier, was that I took a different lane from, you know, everyone else in my family, in the ministry, in serving and all that stuff. I went like the tech route because I had grown up around uh ministry for so long. Not that I got burnt out, it just didn't, it wasn't the same for me because I had served so much that uh sometimes you can, if you're exposed to too much when you're too young, you don't process it correctly, and then you just kind of become numb to it. At least that was my experience, because me and my brother um kind of felt the same, because my brother went a different route too. He went not necessarily the minister route, but he went kind of more of a creative, a different type of route. We kind of, you know, we wanted something different, because at that point we would have been third generation ministers, because it would have been my grandfather was a minister and a pastor, my dad and my mom were ministers and pastors, and me and my brother would have been ministers and pastors. And after so many years of that's all we've been doing since, like, me and my brother took our first steps in a church, like our entire lives were spent, you know, doing just the one thing. And so it's not that we wanted more, because God is completely infinite and unfathomable, but we just didn't want to do that. We were tired of the crisp suits. We were tired of the patent leather shoes. We were tired of, because we were ministers kids.
Patent leather, that's the wrong answer, man. If you ain't got gators, you ain't doing it.
See, and that's the thing that never that never caught our attention, because we're just like, okay, that's cool. That's what we've been growing up with. Like I remember me and my brother used to despise the smell of kiwi, the kiwi shoe, the kiwi shoe shine. It just that stench was like, it was nasty. Like just that kiwi moonshine. And then Avon used to sell that suede, that suede, and all the brothers in the church used to they would buy from the one sister, and so all the men smelled the same, and so we're just like, ugh.
Oh, you talking about
The colognes,
from,
yeah, the
Mary
colognes, the
Kay,
full set, had like the little
what's the name
cowboy,
of
whatever.
Avon,
Avon, yeah.
Avon, Suede is Avon.
Yeah, suede is Avon. So we got tired of that, because it was the same thing. Like we had been smelling the same things, we had been doing the same things, we had been like, by the age of 9, we just kind of repeated everything up until we got old enough to make our own decisions. And we were just like, there's got to be more. There's got to be something different. And that's the thing. Like, you know, luckily for us, God really equipped my parents with an open mind to be like, hey, they're gonna do something different. They're the new generation. Like, let them figure it out. And it was funny because like my brother and I used to make jokes, because you know, every church always has like Christmas productions, and they always have like nativity scenes and stuff. And then so it was always the same thing every year. People try to be hip. They're like, yo, what if we have rapping Jesus? And we're just like, oh, this is so cheesy, so lame. So like, it's like, you mean like rapping? So me and my brother every once in a while would be like, yo, have you heard of this dude? He's new in the gospel. It's like a rapping Jesus. And we're like, dude, shut up. Like, yeah. And it's just like, because it was the same thing for so long. And then growing up and all of that, we were just like, yo, we want to do something different. And so this lane opened up for me, particularly, and my brother kind of went in the same media route. And so really, 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 my question to you was, because every generation kind of has to go through that process of, I'm not going to do what my grandpa did, because you get tired of it, or, you know, because you've seen it so much. And both of you have been around ministry, because you're a pastor's kid and you've been around ministry for a long time. So how did you personally go about like finding, because in that endeavor of finding your own style and what works for you, you know, you at a certain point you have to get made fun of. You have to be kind of looked down upon, because like, oh, he's doing the devil's work, or he's like, you know what I mean? Like that closed-mindedness that inherently comes with old ministries. Mm-hmm. So my question to you guys is in your personal experience, at least me as a young man in the church, how did you go about it when you guys were younger men? And then how are you guys figuring out how to embrace that new generation, such as myself? And you work with the kids, so even younger than me, because I'm gonna be an old dude one day, and I'm gonna be like, "You kids ain't doing it right." I'm fully expecting that. Like, I'm gonna be that old dude with like chucks and torn jeans, and then you'll be like, "That dude's old and weird." So I'm expecting that.
I'm going first. Um, a lot of things you said hit home. First, growing up in church and being second generation, third generation, is we have a joke in my family. I have so many preachers in the family that when we go home to family church, we all try and go late to make sure we're not the one that gets called on to preach. so so we'll circle around the parking lot and see who goes in first. But I think it's important what you said is growing up in church. Sometimes you see what I like to call behind the veil. Like you see the business side of church. You see the people that are one way on Sunday and a different way a different day. Or you see, especially with family and ministry, you see your family pouring out to these people, and then when it's time that they need pouring into, that those people aren't around, or there's certain expectations of you as a church kid or as a preacher's kid or whatever the case is. So I know people have that mindset that a preacher's kid, the pastor's kid is a bad kid.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
I won't say I lived up to that image, but I was kind of that. I wasn't even a mischievous kid, but I like to have fun, and my parents were really good about not forcing us to fit into a mold. So we were allowed to, listen to secular music as long as it was clean secular music. We were allowed to go to the school dance. We were allowed to live as much of a quote unquote normal life as we could.
Yeah.
So I think that is important. Going into ministry, I know for myself, it was a challenge. I first accepted my calling at 14. So that's in the middle of liking girls. That's in the middle of peer pressure taking hold. That's in the middle of all of those things. So for me, it was, back in, I'm 46. So that was back in the late 80s, early 90s. A lot of the preachers of that time in that generation didn't preach about their own mistakes. It was a lot of fire and brimstone, don't do this, don't do that, but they never talked about their personal struggles. So that for me, and even accepting my calling, was I don't meet what this preacher or what this pastor is. And then being a preacher's kid, you kind of see the other side of those. Like I'd see that same preacher talking to my dad about his struggles. And I'm like, how can you say you've never been through anything, but I just heard that you are. So you're making me feel like I'm not worthy of even accepting this calling that I'm already struggling with. And you're presenting as if you're perfect. So I know for me in my personal journey and in my personal ministry, I try and make it a point, even when I talk to the kids at church, I share that I'm not perfect. I share that I made mistakes. I share that, and I think that's an important part of ministry is I can't preach that I'm perfect. I can preach about a perfect God, but I can only preach that I'm flawed and I know a perfect God. So I think that's an important way to kind of help people see beyond the veil and see that, okay, it's okay to be flawed. I'm not, just because I have a title over my name doesn't mean I'm perfect. Just because I get up and share the Bible with you, I'm sharing what I'm learning at the same time. And it's, I'm just allowing you to, or asking you to walk along with me in that journey. So I think those are important things when it gets into the ministry side. But also a thing that I've kind of come to grips with, I won't even say come to grips with, that has I've been enlightened with recently is that ministry is a family thing. Like just because you call me pastor doesn't mean that my family isn't involved in ministry. Whereas I think before it was such a separate thing. Like my dad was the pastor and we were the Pips, it's like Gladys Knight and the Pips. So, we just sit and look pretty in church and you pull on my dad and do whatever you need with him. And when you're done, you drop him back off to us and we're supposed to pick up. But ministry is such a a family thing that everybody has to play their different roles. So even you doing media, that's ministry. You don't have to have a title. I mean, you're reaching more people than a lot of churches do on Sunday. And that's not saying nothing against those churches, but there are other avenues. And, if I'm walking around in a starch suit all the time or wearing a collar all the time, there's certain people that aren't going to be approached or won't be.
They don't starch suits. They just press them.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But somebody who's a Woo fan might see your shirt, and now you have an avenue to speak to that person. Whereas if I'm walking around all tight in a suit, then or wearing a robe or whatever the case is, you can only reach a certain amount of people. So I think it's important, and I think the gospel has gotten to a place where people can be human.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Not saying you can't be human in a suit.
Humanize the robe.
Yeah, you have to. Exactly. And I think that's an important part of ministry.
With me growing up, my experience in ministry was quite different. I was born and raised in the AME church, grew up in the Presbyterian church, and found the Holy Ghost somewhere in the Full Gospel Baptist Church. Shout out to Dr. Alfred Branch, and one of my personal friends and mentors since I was a little kid, Apostle Lorenzo Simmons Sr. They're responsible for the guy that you see in front of you today. They were amazing examples of men of God. I wasn't privy to a lot of stuff beyond the veil, but I know the two guys that I just named are outstanding men in my community, and those definitely were two guys that I looked up to. They didn't have no crazy stuff chasing their name and whatnot. And here, Apostle Simmons, Dr. Branch done retired, but Apostle Simmons, 30 years later, still pastor and teaching and preaching, and as a pillar in the community at Trinity Full Gospel Tabernacle. Well, grew up in church. My mom was I don't necessarily know if I consider her a holy roller, but she was still definitely a hammer, if you will. She believed in God. She believed in the Word of God. She believed in the principles of holiness, and she instilled that in us at a young age. Now, as a child, I was fascinated with clergy. If you came in and you were suited and booted and you could preach real good, I was glued. I'll never forget this one guy. His name was Apostle Lawrence Braggs, and he came down to visit us at Trinity. And we were doing a revival or something. I went to a lot of revivals as a kid.
Oh, me too. All of us did. And, we set him up, tore him down, carried 7 chairs to show off to the girls in the church.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did that.
So Apostle Braggs came down to preach one. I think he closed out the revival, right? And I remember him stopping, at the end of service when they started doing the prophecy and all that kind of stuff. And he zeroed in on me. I had to be 12 or 13 years old. And he said, there's this one kid that's been watching me this whole service. He's been zeroed in, locked in on everything I said. And so he turned around, he pointed at me, and he just began to prophesy over me. And I'm just at all like, yeah, run it, Apostle. You know what I'm saying? Give it all to me. So, I've been getting that word and spoke over my whole life and so forth about, advancing in ministry and moving forward and whatnot. And I've always been the type of guy who was always excited about that. Then, life happens and you move on and you move out. And, I was in the Army, you start smelling yourself and kind of getting out there a little bit. Yeah. But interestingly enough, I always was able to find the Lord wherever I was. The Lord would never let me get too far astray. Right, so I never was out there too much. Found a church at my first duty station and started worshiping and doing my thing there. And really finding out who God was for myself. Moving right along from that. And, I met my wife and got married, and we got married in the church. She was saved. I was saved. We didn't act like it all the time, but we were. We loved the Lord, but we was kids. We was 21 years old when we got married. Yeah. And church has just been my life, and it's always been something that I've been excited about. I've been excited about my relationship with God and trying to cultivate our relationship, and then my kids, and teaching and coaching and mentoring them in the ways of the Lord and whatnot. And it's just my life, I believe, is really a testament to training up a child in the way they should go. And so You know, my mama put a lot of stock in me, and as I've grown older, everything that she put in me has come out of me in ministry. It's come out of me in my
100%. Yeah,
it's come out of me
100%.
in,
Yeah.
you know, my children and whatnot. And I didn't start getting frustrated with ministry until I got older. You know, I accepted my call. I think I was 25 years old. And shortly after I accepted my call, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, man. The dude was like, he told me, he said, man, don't you come back up in here without nothing to say. And so the next Sunday I came back, I had to preach. And I ain't got no collar, I ain't got no license, no nothing. And I want to say that was in October time frame. What was it? April time frame? No, it's March. Okay. I want to say it was March 8th, March 9th of 2007. They gave me a license. They took me down to the convention, to the national convention convocation or whatever you call it, and they gave me a license. And then shortly after that, the man made me his assistant pastor. You know, so
whatever you said was really good.
I was thrown in the ministry quick, and then you know how they come to the home church and you got to preach. Man, Pastor Elder J.C. Lowe, Julius Caesar Lowe was his name. He told me, he said, look, he said, always keep something in your pocket. He said, because when we go down to these district meetings and whatnot, the bishop might call on you. You may have to preach. And let me tell you something. They did just that. Man, they had me all over South Texas preaching and teaching, man. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was stealing messages and all kinds of things. I go on YouTube and find somebody.
That sounds good.
Preach their message before I started learning how to really, nobody ever really taught me how to, you know, lay out and construct a message and whatnot. I just started writing stuff down. My wife will tell you I'd be in my little den area at 7:00 on Sunday morning writing a message. Because this joker had me preaching, because he was old, man. He was like 83 years old. No. This joker had me preaching. He needed somebody. Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday night, man. He got up and preached like first Sunday. He preached like 3 minutes, go sit down. Then asked me if I had something to say. You know,
I guess I do.
So that was my introduction to ministry. Not my introduction, but my introduction to license, ordination, and all that kind of stuff. We had been introduced as in serving in ministry way back in the day when we first got married in the first church that we went to. But at official capacity, man, I was 25 years old, didn't have a clue. And I just did the best that I could. And so moving forward, as I got a little bit older and started, you know, being privy to some things, I started seeing stuff, and I was like, okay, that's odd, that's weird.
Just the way the movement was.
Yeah. And then one thing that the Lord had to really kind of drive home to me was that ministry is not just on Sunday morning.
Right.
You know, God puts people in your life. God gives you a platform everywhere you go to really represent the kingdom. And it's not all about what you say half the time. More people are just watching what you're doing and watching what you got going on in your life. Your lifestyle becomes ministry, and your lifestyle and the way you live before God and before God's people opens up a door for people come and approach you. Now, you ever had somebody come to you at work and say, hey man, I know you go to church. You know what I'm saying? I know. I was wondering if maybe, you know what I'm saying, you could pray for me. And it happens all the time, and it opens up doors. And so we as people have to be receptive to things like that, and those windows of opportunity.
It's part of who you are.
Exactly.
And it's funny that you say that, because I remember when I used to work at a call center, right? Now, for those that don't know, there's a very dark side to call centers. So there's always a lot of drugs. There's always a lot of people showing up drunk and stuff at call centers, because it's very mentally taxing and spiritually heavy. Mm-hmm. Because think about it, you're working like 12 hours a day, micromanage.
Like an AA call center? What's going on? I know.
I'm telling you, I'm showing the light, because I'll keep the company name out of it because I still own my computer. But you know, so there's a lot of like substance abuse, because mainly those call centers exist for people to call in and yell at people. Mm-hmm. So think about it. You're taking about an average of 50 calls for like 6 hours a day of people being upset at you for something they did. And so it's just like, if you're not saved and right with God, and you don't have that mental release or someone to carry your burdens, you're just going to go crazy. And it happened. Either you go numb or you find somewhere else to do it. So I remember specifically, distinctly, because they would always tell me, yo, how you so chill? How you so cool? I'm like, hey, bro, I carry peace with me. You know, like that's what it is. It's in me. It's around me.
I carry peace with me. Smith & Wesson, Glock, Heckler and Koch. I carry those
the
pieces with me
judge,
all the time.
the judge. But yeah, so like I'm like, carry peace with me. I would tell people, hey, I'm saved. That's when my pieces at the end of my shift or during there was breaks, 10-minute breaks. I ain't nothing. I'm going to my car and pray because I can't take it. And so I remember it's funny because it's on you, but you don't really have to tell anybody because people see that light in you. I remember specifically like it was yesterday. It was like I had been at this particular place for almost about a year. This guy, drunk, you could smell the cheap vodka on his breath. Like when people drink a lot and they sweat, and you can kind of smell the alcohol. And probably. And so he comes up to me, he's crying, just like straight up, like like the stutter kind of cry, and he's like, "Hey man."
That's the worst kind of cry when you can't catch the
and
once you get started, man, take about an hour to stop. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
And so I was just like, man, like I thought maybe like his mama whooped him or his girl like broke up with him or like told me he was ugly and left or something. This dude comes in, he's like, "I can't take this job anymore, man." And I'm like, cool. Like, cause I'm trying to clock in. I'm not trying to get, a mark on my thing. And then he's just like, "Hey man, I know we don't talk a lot, but I need a Jesus hug right now." And I was just like, because I had never physically told this dude that, hey, I go to church. He was on my team. He was like one guy that kind of sat to the back and talked to himself, but he saw that light in me and he was just like, "I need a Jesus hug right now." And I kind of like, in my mind, when stuff like that happens, you kind of go in slow motion. I was just like, how did he know, dude? Like, that's like how it was. And I had my badge. I had like 10 minutes to clock in. And in places like that, if you're late, like that docks your money. And I was like, you know what? I took my badge off everything and I just hugged him for maybe about 20 minutes. We were just standing out in front of the building to get inside. And he was just crying, just like crying. And then come to find out he was like a pastor's kid, and come to find out he's dealing with his dad had actually committed suicide as a pastor because people started leaving his church. So he was just like all out of sorts. And so he's like, man, so I was just like, oh, that's crazy that, God will bring people to you. And like my parents, my mom really, she would make the joke that like, you ever go to like a restaurant or a gas station and it's completely empty and you show up and all these people come, and it's just like my mom used to say that's God telling angels to move people towards you because you're commissioned to tell them about Christ. So I mean, that's just one thing I remember as kids, and I'm just like, yeah. And it was just like the craziest thing. So when you're talking about it, it reminded me of that. I'm just like, just crazy because it's on you, it's in you, it's around you. Absolutely. It's just the way you move and operate. Like, for me, it's Wu-Tang and worship. I'm actually gonna make a sticker and put it on my car. It's like, I'll be, I'll ride to church bumping Cream, and then I'll just get out and be like, hey, yo, Christ.
Short in the Lord. Listen.
I'm just saying. I mean, it is
old school. Hello.
And it's just like, listen, like it's. I'm a human person. That's what I like. That's my taste. Like it's making yourself relatable. Like, just be real. People are tired of fabricated worship.
I think that one thing that's important is to be grounded and relatable. And some people, preachers, pastors, teachers, I ain't talking about nobody in particular, but I'm just saying in general, they're not, they reach this level, they're not relatable. People feel like I can't get with you because you're too perfect. If I come and I tell you my issues, you may judge me, and I don't want you to see this part of me because I'm this type of person at church, but I'm that type of person at home. And people are never really delivered and are able to move on from their issues because they got people that lord over them that are not relatable. But I'm relatable. I try to be nice and cool and let you see that I'm just as crazy as you are, but I know I need the Lord. And I'm going to share what I got and what I need with you to help you through whatever you got going on.
Amen. So let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Your preaching
Me
style.
or him?
You.
Okay.
Mario, your preaching style. Where did that come from?
I don't have one.
You don't feel like you have a preaching style?
I'm not a preacher. I'm not. I'm not a preacher, man. I'm not a preacher. As much as I have tried to, hoop and holler and oh, I could do it in the shower. But when it comes time to articulate the word of God, I'm more of a lecturer or just a teacher of what God has shared with me. And I can't, I'm not that 3 points in the close type of guy. I mean, I'm gonna give you your 3 points, but you know, when it comes to closing, oh, I'm getting ready to close. You know, I mean, I can, like I said, I can do it in the shop.
Yeah.
I can preach all day long at the house. But let me get in the pulpit. All you're gonna get is college professor.
Because Mario, for me, he has that voice, like he has the southern drawl, he has like the deeper baritone, like the traditional preacher voice.
God won't let me do it
And
for whatever reason.
like that was always my struggle, even in ministry, is I wanted to hoop. Like I desired to hoop so bad, and God never gave me that hoop, and I always struggled with. Like I have friends, like some of the friends I came up with preaching, like they can hoop a house down.
I got a partner like that too, man.
Like I always wanted to sing before I preached, and I always wanted to hoop at the end. Like I wanted to have my opening song,
and I can sing
hoop.
too, but Lord ain't never gave me no
But
songs.
that was never my style, and I always felt for so long that I couldn't reach people because I didn't hoop like everybody, like traditional church. I couldn't hoop. That just wasn't in me.
Mm-hmm.
And then people started saying, like, your messages are so relatable. I understand what you say. I think for me, that was a sense of confidence that God, you got me doing. Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think every person, no matter where you are in ministry, has that point where you question, God, is this really what you want me doing?
Hello.
You know, is this, am I really doing the
Every
right
time
thing?
you do it, you go, Lord, are you sure?
Yeah, exactly.
When you get done, Lord, really? That's what you wanted me?
Right.
Really? I messed that all the way up. You know?
Yeah. So, you know, I always wanted that style. I wanted that voice. You know, I used to try yelling or try like, I probably shouldn't do that on the mic to get that. Yeah, to get that preacher voice or get that, you know, gargly growl. I wanted that growl, and you know, because that's what you grow up with. But
you know, it comes somewhere between your nose and your esophagus when they do that, and they breathe in. You know, it's like, God, dog, man, do you need to spit or hawk up a loogie or what?
And I know you've seen that video. And so and so and so and so.
Oh yes, absolutely. Jasper Williams.
Yes, sir.
The art of hoopology.
Right,
yes, sir.
right.
Yes, sir.
So
he had some bad preachers on that thing, boy.
I'm trying to tell you,
bad preachers, boy. What was his name? Was it Leroy? Leroy. What's Leroy's last name, man?
You got me.
That joker get ready to tune up. Hey, listen.
Yeah, but
you can't. The piano don't even need to follow him. The organ, to leave him alone. Let him tune it.
Let him tune up on his own.
Let him tune up on his own.
So
Leroy Elliott.
Yeah,
Leroy Elliott
I've
out of Chicago.
Yes,
yeah, that boy tough, man.
Yeah.
One of my favorite preachers though is Bishop Liston Page. You ever heard of Liston Page?
I know that name.
Junior, not senior, because they both bishops, but I like senior like to hold his ear.
Okay,
but Junior is more of a scholar, and he really takes you through the word and breaks it down and gives you an understanding of the times and what was going on, and he brings it forward and makes it. Man, look up Liston Page.
I will.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you another number. Marvin Winans.
Yo, that joker.
Boy,
he could preach it.
The joker can sing, preach, and pray.
Yes.
Now, if I was gonna preach like anybody, it'd be him if I could, but the Lord won't let me. All I can do is just
teach a little bit. Yeah.
Teach.
You know, when a preacher says they can teach a little bit, that means they can preach.
Oh man,
that's a secret. Like if they say 5, it's the same as if they say just give me 5 minutes, then
I'm
you're
probably
gonna sit there for another hour.
Unrefined teacher preachers you ever wanted to meet.
Or I'm getting ready to close. You know, those are all church lies.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
It's all the same. It's all the same. Oh man.
It's all the same. It's all the same in our English and in Spanish, and that it's funny because you guys mentioned that there's like a lot of preachers and doctors and educated, like theological, like titans in ministry, and these are what pastors and ministers model themselves after. These are the heroes, and again, it goes back to that whole thing of like me and my brother were trying to find our own lane because we were just like. Those doctors, I'm like, because me and my brother, I remember we had this conversation, and he was like, I don't want to spend 30 years just, reading a Torah and like figuring out what the actual Hebrew said of whatever. I'm like, I know Jesus. I know what he's done for me. I know what he's done, and like I can facilitate. But that was never us. That was never us. Like we didn't want to go to like a theological mecca and spend 30 plus years reading old textbooks. Just to us, I was just like, oh, we can't do that. But then we found our own individual lane supporting the people who had those callings. Next thing we know, we're running revivals, just me and my brother as usher, sound guy, music, everything. We're now facilitating 5 or 6 people doing just that. And it's crazy because what you said, because earlier you said with that we will reach more people than any one person could, because that's the way technology is shifting and moving and growing and progressing. And it's crazy because we're at a point now that we can do something like this, and I now know like 25 different ministers that I can go look up and get fed from, just from this conversation. That would have never have happened 5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, let's say like 10, 15 years ago. That would have never have happened. Things like that, where it's like, now we're in the space where, you know, broadcasting and digital media is now more widely accepted than anything else. So you can go consume hours of content without batting an eye. Now imagine, instead of like I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons fan.
Hours of content when I was trying to preach all the messages at the church.
You see, you should have wrote them joints down and started your podcast. And now you got like hours and hours and hours of permanent content instead of be like, what did I say that one Sunday 2 years ago?
I still got the notebook. I do.
You need to bring all 7 of them, and we will broadcast all of them.
I still got that notebook.
And so it's crazy.
I will resurrect them messages. My wife tell you I done preached 91st Division Psalms 1,000 times. 50 different ways.
50 different ways.
Lord, give me something different every time.
Let's do it. And so it's just crazy because I think it's needed that as that. And then like my second question to that is, because you were an evolution of what was poured into you guys, right? How did you take that and use it for your definition of ministry? Because like, again, like I make that joke of Wu-Tang worship, but I've gotten to have so many conversations with people that never talked about Jesus in their life. I've gotten to reach out to people and talk to people like, I went to a Tech Nine show, right? In the middle of Tech Nine, I'm talking to this dude about Christ. He's like, woo, like on stage, like, woo, woo. And I'm like, yeah, dude, just kind of having a real conversation. Like, hey, I got peace. Hey, I listen to this music, but I don't have to drink, KCTs to get through the day. I don't have to, make gallons of Caribou Lou. Huh?
What is a KCT?
Oh, it's a Tech Nine thing. Technician fans know what I'm talking. It's a drink. It's liquor. It's like hard liquor. So I'm like, the whole thing was like, all
I know about is Hennessy.
Hennessy's scary. I mean, being perfectly honest, I drank it once, never again. I was just like, that's too much.
That's too much. All I know about. I don't know about
it. So it was just like that whole thing. Like I got to evolve and take what was important to me, and then just kind of make it make sense to somebody who would have never had thought about that. And I think that's one thing that I'm most grateful for, because what was it? My dad used to always say, I don't know if it's a song or something, but he's like, as a preacher man, you got to break down the word, make it plain and simple, and something like that. He used to say, he said, I would take the word and break it down so simple a child could understand, something like that. It was like an old song, and my dad used to always say that. And he used to, when he would do sermons, he had a notepad and he would write "kiss" at the top. Keep it simple, stupid. Like he would write that every time, and he'd like, you know what? There's no. He's like, we're trying to reach everybody. There's no reason why I need to get super super deep. Kind of like our pastor says, I'm called to feed his sheep, not his giraffes. And so we were just like, yeah, that makes sense to us. And so again, like my question I want to bring up to you guys is, knowing your evolution and everything you've gone through, how does that make you relatable? Like your definition of relatable? Because I know there's a lot of things that, not that I'm like mad at church or whatever, because I love serving. I love my church. I love ministry. I love what God's done in my life. Because honestly, I wouldn't be here without him. Like, honestly speaking, those principles never change. Like from Smith Wigglesworth all the way to Steve Furtick, it's all the same principles.
No, folks don't know nothing about that Wigglesworth.
Wigglesworth, man. Wigglesworth.
Yeah, boy. Folks don't know nothing about that.
What is it?
Talk about Wigglesworth.
yep.
Folks be like, who?
Yeah. Hey, man.
You got to be a scholar to know who Wigglesworth is, man.
I'm telling you, we grew up with some scholars in the family. We went deep with it, and we're just like, not that we chose to ignore it, but it's like there's got to be something different. We can't keep doing the same thing that we're doing because everyone's gonna. Because if we use the same excuses, then people. So if we do the same thing, people are gonna use the same excuses they used in the '80s to get out of church today. And it never changes. And it's like we need to evolve, and we need to make it simple. It's like you don't need to be in the club to come to the church. Like there's no secret organization. Me and my brother used to laugh because we had a conversation again one time that like Baptist churches and Pentecostal churches are like Crips and Bloods. Cause like it was like I'm like, y'all do the same thing, but like it's just different colors and different sounds. And it's just like, hey, yo, we ain't like you Pentecostal fools over here. Like we just laughed about it because it felt like gangs.
Jesus and him crucified. They ain't preached until they done put Jesus in the grave and raised him up again. Yeah, they're gonna take the cross.
Yeah, it's just, and so that's my question. How is it you guys breaking the mold in your own right to kind of bring your particular evolution? Because you did something different, completely different, and then you did something like completely different,
I think one thing that's important is that traditionally, what have people these big moguls and big time preachers and pastors, what kind of persona have they presented in the kingdom? They presented to the people like they were perfect and holier than thou, and more often than not, you'll see some of the biggest people go through scandals and end up falling, and half the church fall and go with them. You know what I'm saying? And people turn away and leave because I made myself something that I wasn't. So I think the one thing that is very important is to not present as that person that's perfect or that's holier than thou. Hey, I'm a man just like you, but I'm a man that recognized that through everything that I've gone through, I wouldn't be here if it had not been for the Lord on my side. And I think me and my wife struggle, and we have issues and fights and situations. I'm not perfect because I cuss sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I have issues and problems and situations and proclivities just like anybody, and I'm not gonna hide that from you and make you think that I'm this person that is this close to God. The true fact of the matter is I'm an imperfect person that's this close to God, but I realize that I need God to continue this life the way that God wants me to do it, and of course we strive towards perfection, knowing that the possibility of reaching it, I don't know, maybe not. But I'm perfect and whole because the blood of Jesus Christ covers me. So when God looks at me, he sees me through rose-colored shades because I'm covered in the blood. Now, that's not a license to do whatever you feel like doing, but the blood also has healing tendencies that heals those hurts and heals those proclivities in those situations. And the more I walk covered in that cloak of Jesus Christ, the more I walk the way he wants me to walk. Because when I started 30 years ago, it was a crooked walk. And the more I walk with Jesus, the straighter that walk begins. It becomes to be. But I still got imperfections. I'm still going to fall. Not maybe fall like some of these other people be cutting up and acting the fool. But,
Shannon says, "Hey, brother."
Hey.
But it's important to be true to you, who you are. Be yourself, and don't make somebody think that you're more, because it really does open up the door for you to minister to all types of people when they feel like you are that relatable person and you can't understand and relate to what they're going through and what they're dealing with. See? Back to you, Jason.
I totally agree with what you're saying. And even with that, I think like if you look at the parallels in the Bible, I think we're very much the same way. I mean, the story in the parallels, you hear it from different points of view. And I think that's our job as ministers, that's our job as Christians, that's our job as followers of Christ, is I can only tell you my point of view of my relationship with Christ. And hopefully that inspires you to develop your own point of view. So Mario serves the same Jesus I serve, you serve the same Jesus I serve, but our stories are different. If my story can reach this person because they understand it this way, your story, like if you can Wu-Tang and worship and I can Jay-Z and Jesus, you might not be a Wu-Tang fan, you might be a Jay-Z fan.
Tupac and Timothy.
Exactly. DMX and Deuteronomy. But I think that's something you have to understand. I remember I had a working in behavioral health when I was in the military. I had a soldier come to me and they were going through some things and they somehow recognized, just like you said, they recognized I was a Christian and they asked me to pray with them. And whenever somebody asked me to pray with them, I asked them, do you want to lead or do you want me to lead? And they decided to lead. And the prayer that they said was from the DMX album, like word for word. And I was like, yo, that's X. And they were like, exactly. How do you know DMX? You listen to DMX? I thought it was like, do you go? I thought you go to church. I said, yeah.
What y'all really want?
I said, yeah, I go to church, but I know, I listen to that. And just that alone made me relatable now. And this person would come back, like they would set appointments, and every week they would come, and all we would do for that hour is pray. And we developed a relationship in Christ and a relationship as brothers in Christ. I led him to Christ right there in my office. And you're not supposed to do that in the military, but that's the way it worked.
Tamika, Felicia, Regina.
But I think that's the importance of being relatable, of the importance of understanding that Jesus is everywhere, understanding that I am flawed. I'm not perfect, but I don't broadcast my faults. But if it's something that I can relate to you with, then maybe that's something I can share with you.
Absolutely.
But I think it's important to never come across as perfect. I try and be I tell everybody, I try and be a better Jason today than I was yesterday.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow my desire is to be better than I was today. And as long as you can continue in that step, it's not a automatic I'm perfect. Like, yes, God sees me as perfect because he sees me at that final step. But right now where I'm at, I got a lot of steps. Prayerfully, I got a lot of steps and a lot of days ahead of me to get to that place of perfect, to get to that place where I'm well done. I'm getting better every day, but I want to get to that place where I'm well done. So I think that's
we just don't eat our steaks well done. Medium.
No, not at all. Medium rare, and dry aged preferably. I'm trying to tell you. Amen.
What's his name? Like Hank Hill used to say, if that's well done, ask him politely to leave.
Exactly. We asked them politely and firmly to leave.
So I know we've been talking for a minute. This is just good conversation.
23 minutes.
23 minutes. Let's keep it rolling. But we're down to the last 3 minutes, and it's just like, man, just a lot of good impartation, because it's like, it's good to feel and to see like everyone watching or people who are happen to stop by for a couple of seconds. I saw all of you, but I was so engrossed in the conversation, I mean to shout y'all out. But the whole point is, serving God is a human endeavor. It's human people, it's humans trying to be like Christ, and that's the thing, it's Christ-like. We're not called to be Christ. Sorry, Kanye. We're supposed to be that. We're supposed to be like God. We're not supposed to put our names in the Bibles. Anyway, but that's the whole thing. Like, it was a struggle, at least for me, and I wanted to talk about it because those are things that don't get brought up too often. At least because it's like whether you spent your whole life in ministry or you spent a week in ministry, a lot of those things do come up. Because what happens when you see, because it's no secret, literally everyone on earth has seen imperfect leaders, and it's like, then when they mess up or when they do something or when something happens, then rather than seeing the leader as a human person, they think all of God is wrong. They're like, see, that's why God don't work. And it's like, no, dude, like he's the blueprint. We're just the cheap couches from Wish. That's all it is. Like we're the Wish. We're the Wish products of.
I mean, come on, man.
It's all the same thing once you figure out.
Wish all wrong. The sizes be wrong. I thought this was an XXL, man.
Oh no!
Turn around. This fit my 3-year-old.
Yeah, Asian sizes. I'm like a quad. I'm like a 16X.
I ordered a shirt from a nice shirt too from Wish. 3X. I had to give it to Jacob.
Yo, he was like
perfect.
He was like, "Thank you, Dad. Appreciate it." But that's the whole thing I'm trying to say. Like we're called to be Christ-like and follow in the footsteps. We're not making those footsteps. It's been planned for us since the beginning, since even before the beginning. So it's that whole thing of just like, that's why we need to remember to be human, and that was our kind of direct issue with, and I say our because it's like not just me and my brother. It's like other ministry kids that we grew up with, just like, how I don't want to be that fake, because we saw things like how it would weigh on a family, destroy our mentalities, how it would um morally not corrupt us, but like morally just kind of felt you uneven, because if you've been in the ministry for a long time, because like you mentioned earlier, you start to see the business side of it. So there's those pastors and those ministers that know how to manipulate the crowd, that do the fake crying and do the brothers and sisters, we need you, and because God says, and like they're looking out into like the northeast, and like they're just like getting this fake revelation. We were done with that. We were done with all of that.
Somebody in here got a mother dying from cancer. That's 3 or 4 people right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like
Shotgun.
we used to, like, me and my brother used to watch a lot of wrestling, and the day it changed for us is like, man, Jake the Snake Roberts sound like a pastor right now. you know, and like if Stone Cold would just add Jesus after every stanza, he'd be preaching right now. And I'm just like, that's where me and my brother were like,
Because Jesus said so.
and that's
I
the
know
bottom
a joker
line,
look like Stone
because
Cold
God
somehow.
says so.
Shout out to Jerry Powers.
And so that's the whole thing, because like it was just those things, and because I watched a lot of wrestling and all that stuff, and I remember when there was this guy, CM Punk. He had this gimmick where they had him pretend to be like a fake cultist, and like he was like brainwashing people to join his crew in the WWE. It was like this whole, like his whole gimmick thing, right? He was supposed to be the wrestling savior, and people were supposed to join him, right? In his interview, he said, they're like, man, you did so good. That was one of your best gimmicks and one of your best characters and one of your best, like, of all time. How did you come up with that? And he's like, oh, that's too easy. He's like, I went to YouTube and stayed up late and watched all the evangelists. Wow. And he said, I watched all the evangelists and I did exactly what they did. But instead of saying Jesus, I said wrestling. And he was like, and it worked perfectly, like a charm. We made so much money off of those shirts. We made so much money off of that, all that stuff. He's like, that's why I ran the gimmick for like 4 years, something like that. He's like, it worked so well, I didn't have to change anything.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I'm just like, that's not what Christ is. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be fabricated. We're supposed to be authentic. And it's one of those things that blew my mind.
I tell you one thing you'll learn as you go about this life, trying to be authentic. Authentic people are not always palatable.
It's true.
Authentic people generally tend to offend unauthentic people.
Yeah.
Authentic people, they tend to run together, if not run alone most of the time, because they're so authentic that even sometimes other people who claim they're authentic can't even deal. I've lost a lot of friends who claim that they are authentic or real because I was too real for them.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be who I am. I'm not gonna water myself. I got this thing that I post in my background. My mama's been my background for a long time, since she passed. But before that, I got some other background pictures, and one of them says, "Don't ever water yourself down because somebody can't handle you at 100 proof, or technically 200 proof, however you want to look at it." But I don't water myself down. My wife will tell you that my personality is congruent through my household, when I'm at church, when I'm at work, when I'm in school, when I'm in any other environment with my family. The same Mario that y'all get right here is the same Mario that they get at home, is the same Mario that y'all get at church. I just try not to cuss at church.
Try, yeah.
And even with that, I had a bishop back home, and he used to say, "Don't call yourself my friend if you're afraid to hurt my feelings." And I think that comes with ministry, and being authentic in ministry and being your real self. You are going to hurt somebody's feelings. You're not going to meet everybody's expectations. Yes, I'm a pastor. Yes, I still like Jay-Z. Yes, I'm a pastor. Yes, I still like to go out and dance with my wife, or I like to go out, so, and some people are going to put these pedestals on you or put these expectations on you. And sometimes in being authentic, you have to jump off that pedestal. You have to jump off of, I can't let you put me in this box. I can't let you say this is how you're supposed to be. I'm a preacher, but I don't drive a Cadillac. Cadillac? Would I like to? Yeah, sure. But that's not.
It's overrated. I done had about 4.
Yeah, I done had a few myself, but that's not. I can't let you put me in that box. And I think that's what we're seeing even now in gospel. That's what we're seeing in ministry. That's what we're seeing in even the music and the dress and and I think that's important, is for people to be authentic. Like, be you. Lead Christ. Like, I can't lead you to Jesus being TD Jakes. I can't, because that's not who I am. I have to be me. I have to preach the way God gives it to me. I have to share it the way God shared it with me. And if I'm not willing to be authentic, then where am I leading you? Because I can't even, I'm leading you to somebody else, because I'm not giving you the authentic Christ that's working in me. So I think that's the most important part of being relatable. We didn't talk about baby mamas.
Well,
So
we'll segue into that.
Yeah, we'll segue into that. We got how much? 13 seconds left. So
Man, don't worry about the clock.
we talked about,
Facebook streams a maximum of 5 hours. So we're good.
Oh, so
We
we're good.
good.
We got time. So
we cultured not to worry about the clock anyway. So don't.
so 2 of us are married with children. Daniel is not at this point.
Unmarried and unknown when it comes to children.
But that's a funny thing with, we said it before we went live. I was like, at the 18-year mark, if nobody knocked on the door, I know I'm
Good.
I'm the husband of 1 wife and the father of 2 children. That can be my intro.
That's it.
But I think even in ministry, we need to. You always want to be mindful of your wife, be mindful of your children. I know my kids, every time before I would get up to preach, they'd be like, "You didn't give me a shout out." So they expecting the acknowledgments for me to say their names. I can't just say my son and daughter, But having a wife, I don't like to be called baby daddy. My wife thinks that's a term of endearment. I don't like it. I'm not a baby daddy. I am a father and a husband. So I think it's a different thing, but that's just me. That's maybe my own proclivity. But I think it's important as a husband that's your first church, is your family.
Absolutely.
And that's who you're the priest over. So I think it's important to take that role seriously and, cultivate your wife, cultivate your children, cultivate your family, bring them up in the way that, shout out to my wife right there. But I think those things, and there's Mario's wife over there. Man, this is confusing. But I think that's the most important thing. So,
talking about Mario's wife, I'm over here pointing, and this is where my finger is.
No, that's his wife. There you go.
That fine young thing, right?
But I think before we close out, I think it's important that we do acknowledge and thank our wives and future wife. If you're watching, hit 1 or put a heart in the comment or whatever.
I know some single people at the church.
But yeah.
Call my manager. Apparently, she's taking applications. Call my manager.
Hey, that's a blessing right there. Chris done turned all her kids into millionaires. Everything Chris touched turned to gold. Now everything her daughters touched turned crazy. But that's another conversation.
That's it. Don't matter, because you got a crazy multi-billionaire now. You got a crazy billionaire. So
they got anointing for money. They ain't got anointing for men. All money, no men. Stay away from them. Anyway.
That's the real meaning of this podcast. Stay away from them. Stay away from them. You got the answer. Oh man, I'm not gonna watch the documentary. I'm just I might watch it, but I'm gonna watch it. Genius on Netflix right now. Sponsor the show. Please appreciate it. Yeah, man, it's being, I don't know how, because being single in the church now is a different ball game from when you guys are single. And it's funny because me and some of the other single men in the church, we talk about it a lot. We're just like, bro, how? And then we're just like, I don't know. And it's like it's just the craziest thing. So you guys
knew I couldn't be single. He knew that. I'd be a single anyway. Go ahead.
So like what I'm trying to say is seeing men like you in the church give single guys like us hope, because you guys are still making it work in the current climate. So we know that that work will pay off, that we know that just staying the course will pay off. Like as crazy as everything seems right now, as because like for example, your guys' generation never really had to deal with cancel culture, which is very rampant and prevalent in
We're
not
gonna
just
try not to get you canceled tonight.
yeah. Yeah, I know, I'm just like yeah, and like there's apps that so for those of you that never had dial-up internet, cancel culture is when so cancel culture is when I don't even know how to explain it
That's
properly.
what they did to Dave Chappelle. After he
Cancel
had the
culture
last,
is when you
special.
hurt it's cancel culture is when you hurt someone's feelings and they basically
Name
cancel
the
you
gay
from
people.
everything. Like no, literally everybody, literally anybody. And so in particular Dave, because I'm a big Dave Chappelle fan, in Dave Chappelle's particular thing, he was sympathizing with those group of people, but they didn't like the way that he was sympathizing with them. So because their feelings were hurt, they tried to boycott Netflix to get his multi-million-dollar specials canceled. Right now, trickle that down into church politics, where because someone doesn't like the way some pastor says something or related something, or because like the most recent instance when pastor said he bought his wife Louis Vuitton, and they're like, you're not supposed to be saying that from the pulpit, and they got mad and left. You know what I mean? Like different things like those are things of cancel culture. Now, as a single man in the church,
Not
no,
Netflix,
it's not just Netflix. So what I'm saying is cancel culture applies to the entire demogorgon that is the internet and a group of people, because they will just like, for example, I'll even give one of a recent like Christian version of that, when Michael Todd spit on his brother and everybody's like, you can't do that. They try to cancel him and shut down his ministry and all this stuff and all this stuff. That's cancel culture. So we talk about it, me and some of the other single guys, we talk about,
he hacked that thing.
oh yeah, it was
Rubbed it in his hand and then pow, put it in his eye. I said, hey man, that's not too real for me, baby. Next.
it's like illustrations going too far. We appreciate it. Oh Jesus. but that's the thing, like, you know, you guys that's the thing, your guys' generation in a sense didn't have to deal with that because information didn't travel as fast, especially false information, you know what I mean? And so you can create a perception of yourself and present yourself in a different light at any split second. Like from the time pastor starts a sermon to the end, I can fabricate a whole personality online and gain followers. And power like that has never been available to other relationships. So like there's this weird kind of thing happening with, at least as a single man, there's a thing that I've been like that we see, that we now have to grapple with all of that, but then we see stable marriages and relationships in the church, and we're like, I'm willing to deal with all of that so I can get that, because of the stability and because of the support that you get. Because it's like now it's less about finding a wife and more finding a ride or die that doesn't have a Twitter account, you know what I mean? So it's just like that's kind of what's going down. And it's just interesting to see like how a lot of it's funny because like there's this weird struggle where I don't want to be too polarizing, but when it comes to,
baby. Polarize.
so like, because there's this thing where and I've talked to other single men in the ministry where it's like, how are you going to be overtly feminist and independent but still believe in submission? Does that make sense? There's a way to do it right, because you can be a strong woman that submits, right? Biblically, that's like how you do it, right? There's a lot of strong women in the Bible, but in one thing that
get us to go too far in this conversation, you know how wife.
No, I know. I'm keeping it right on the right. I'm keeping it because it's a very
back up on the polarization. I digress.
so as a single man, we run into, and I shared with somebody like I forgot who I shared. Anyway, the whole thing was just like, okay, yes, you're Christian. Yes, I believe. If you believe Bible, okay, cool. I'm not saying give up your personality or give up your individuality. I'm just saying help me help you create the relationship we're supposed to. But you can't pet a barking dog. You know,
Get your hand bit off.
exactly. You can't pet a barking dog. If you're just like, "Ah, rah, 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 rah," it's like, okay, like, do you want to work this out, or do you want me just to pay? Do you want me to just give you free food so you can yell at me? Like, pick one. You know, and so it's this interesting thing that the church, it's just weird. Like it's the church has to be. I'm not saying like the church has to do this or has whatever, but the church should be a place where you can go and be human. You know, it's not there to be like it's not there to be a vending machine of lifestyles.
Mhm.
You know, you can't just pick and choose what you want for a couple cents and tithe and get what you want. You know what I mean? And it's like hold on, I'm gonna pass it over to Pastor Jason.
I think with what you're saying, there's a lot that we miss, and I'll even share. It was a concern for me, even in preaching, in today's climate. Is I gotta watch every word I say in my sermon, because somebody could take just that snippet and make I could be on somebody's YouTube page with that snippet saying I'm teaching something totally contrary to
Newsflash, you're already on
to what I
somebody's
said.
YouTube page.
Yeah, but with that, I think people look at relationships the same. Like, people see me and Kenyatta, and it's like, oh, you guys have the perfect marriage. You guys are this, you guys are that. But you're only seeing the snippet. You're only seeing the highlights. You're only seeing this portion right now. I mean, we've been married 22 years. You didn't see the years where we're struggling, the years where she had money hidden in the closet in case she needed to leave me, or those kind of. I know I told on her, but people didn't see those things. You just see the final result.
Mhm.
And even in ministry, I remember being young and preaching. I would go to different churches, and there'd be a girl standing up. The Lord told me that I'm supposed to marry Minister Jason, and it's like, Lord didn't tell me
Never
that.
had that problem.
So there.
I'm gonna borrow your microphone.
Same with.
I'm gonna borrow your microphone real quick. What is it about old church that they think that prophecies are gospel Tinder? It doesn't work like that.
Right. They done swiped right. They swiped right on the offering plate. but I think yes, in this generation you guys have temptations, you have struggles, but we had the same struggles, just we didn't have the technology behind it, so it didn't follow us as easily as it does you guys. You don't have to delete somebody's friend. Like, for me, I just don't have to go to that church anymore. That crazy girl that thinks she's my wife, I'm not going to that Fifth Sunday service. Whereas you have
Y'all been to Fireside Baptist, y'all know they got a girl up in there
Right.
stand up talking about she's somebody's husband every Sunday.
Right. So I think the temptations are different, but I also think we have to be willing to look at more than just the snippet. People will say, I see your relationship. I see this is great. I see you guys have it so easy, where everything isn't easy, but where you have to be willing to do the work. And I think that's what, in this generation, especially, like, I see it with the kids at church all the time. Like, all right, turn to your Bibles to this. We'll do a Bible search. And instead of turning to the Bible,
They pull out the phone.
they pull out the phone, and you can, okay, well, I know you can get the answer, but I want to see you find the answer. I want to see you work through the Bible. It's easy to just click, where is John 3:16? But you need to know the books of the Bible to know where, is it Old Testament, is it New Testament? So I'll ask those questions, and I think we have to do the same even in our relationships. Like, yeah, it's hard to pet a barking dog, but what can I do to get the dog? Like, first step, I need to get the dog to stop barking. So I can't feed you until you stop barking. So we have to be willing to take those steps, even in relationship. I grew up old, and I'm older, so we grew up in church. You courted. It wasn't you go straight on a date. You court, some by choice, some by situation.
Arranged marriage.
Well, we didn't have an arranged marriage, but I know my wife, when we were dating, her mom would often come with us on our date. Like, our first few dates, she would come with us.
Oh, man.
And
Y'all was saved.
or we were yeah.
Just want to thank God I'm saved.
So there's certain steps that I think we miss out on nowadays. There's certain things that we kind of glance over because it's such a people always say the microwave
The
culture,
instant gratification.
the instant gratification. If I swipe right on you, then that means, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm looking for a right now. And I think that's what people have gotten away from. But those are the values that are instilled in us in the church. So then it's a hard balance of, I just want to date you. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not looking for a baby mom. I'm looking for a wife. And those are hard things to get past. And even for men, making yourself a man, like you want a woman to submit, but what are they submitting to? Like, as a man, you have to have something for her to submit to. Like, I have a job, I have a house, I have good credit, I have these things, I have myself in order, and now I'm ready for a wife, instead of let me get a wife and I'll figure the rest out as we go along, which is a hard road to go. And even if you do that, like, let me get a wife and then we'll figure things out, you're doing things out of order. So we have to be mindful of even the order in which we go into relationships, the order in which we present ourselves as a man, and the order in which we go find our wives. So
I don't
it's a
know.
lot.
I may have to challenge that statement just a little bit. And I don't want to take too long, but that's kind of the way. I had nothing. Neither did she. Because because we was all the way out of order then, if that's the case, But I tell you one thing we did have. We had love for each other. We had love for God, and at that point, everything fell into place. It didn't come easy, and it didn't come without struggle. I mean, we struggled. I mean, she hit me in the back of my neck one day and knocked me down. Knocked me down on the floor, man. She threw a 3-inch stiletto at me while my grandma was at the house. To call the police on me, and the police was gonna take her to jail. He gave me a car and said, I too was a victim of domestic violence.
Do you have somewhere you can stay tonight?
Hello. I mean, we done been down through there. But as I grew in Christ and as she grew in Christ, we both definitely grew closer together, and the relationship is maintenance, and it takes a lot of work. But I tell you what, I couldn't ask for a better wife. I look at some of the other options that I probably could have capitalized on before I met her, and think about them like now, man, ain't no way I could. Ain't no way. Can't nobody be a better wife to me than Miss TT.
And fundamentally, you guys are saying the same thing. It's because, like you said, you had love for God and love for each other. Right there, those are two very good pieces of common ground, because you got God at the center of the whole thing, and now
Jesus be the center of your church.
So forgot what I was saying. Oh,
I sing that good. My bad. Sorry. Took your breath away.
Available on iTunes now. Release some Ditto music. Make sure you shout us out. Anyway, so yeah, but that's the whole thing, because like how you mentioned earlier, kind of like what you guys kind of to combine what you guys said. You're supposed to have love for God. That was the main thing, and then you find that love for each other. And you said a lot of people want that microwave kind of result. We're in a place now where, and I'll put it kind of like how the great philosopher Andy Mineo once said. He's like, once you print it into the news, we go to Twitter because then it's owed to us. You know what I mean? Like, instead of watching K-Fox, we'll go to Twitter. And I remember doing that like a couple years ago when the power went out because like something blew up at Western Refining. And you could ask my mom, she's right there. In like 13 minutes, I found out everything that happened, why it blew up, what areas went out, and everything, right? K-Fox was just like, we'll have the story for you tomorrow. And I found everything. I found video. I found down to like the plans and area of where it blew up and who's responding. Like that's the whole thing. And the problem with that is that, and don't take this by me complaining about being single. I'm happy in my singleness because I get to do a lot of cool stuff and I get to be a lot of cool places. But the thing is like it's difficult. What I'm really trying to say is, like, in this climate, it's difficult to be a single person, but we appreciate the longevity in your guys' relationships because that shows us that it's worth it. So I guess really what I'm trying to say is be encouraged, brothers. Like, but it's cool because it's like it's you know, and that's the thing, man. It's kind of funny. People will fall in love with a profile in a second, but refuse to submit to the husband for years. You know what I mean? And it's just the craziest thing. So I appreciate you guys having baby mamas. As a future baby daddy, I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, you might be a current baby daddy. You know?
Might be I don't know, man. I spent some years in Juarez, but that's a different story. So we appreciate. I know we've been on 13 seconds for the last hour or whatever,
That's fine.
but we appreciate. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we actually close out?
Let's not next time. Let's do this live from Juarez at that steakhouse. Live from location.
I ain't never been. So
Me
I
neither.
wanna
Let's
go.
do it.
You know, I like to eat.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you for having us out here. It's a good time. My first podcast. Had a good time. Thank you.
Mario's a returning guest. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you allowing me to grace the microphone with style and waves. All you single people, just keep doing what you've been doing. Don't search too hard.
Maybe not what you've been doing. Maybe not what you've been doing.
True.
Keep
true.
on moving.
But you know,
Go serve. Go serve in the church, bro.
That's it. That's it. Go find the Lord and then let the mate find you. Because when I met Miss Thomas, I wasn't looking for her. She just kind of fell in my hands. You know, the Lord gave me what I needed when I needed it. You know.
There's some wisdom in that. There's some wisdom in that.
It because
he didn't have to. What is it? He didn't have to swipe right. He had to wait for the right time.
There you go. I tell people, I said, if it had not been for the Lord and Miss Thomas on my side, I don't know where I'd be.
So that's
that.
So that's that. Bible beards, mainly Bibles and baby mamas. Beards. Hit the link for the beard oil.
There you go.
But we appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you like, make sure you share, and make sure you comment. If you're watching this on the replay, just hit it 2 so we know to give it to reach out to you. It is 2. So it is 2 Tuesday. So we appreciate you guys stopping by. We thank you so much. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, morning, and evening, or whatever. We appreciate you guys, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.